friends, it's Jasmine, your Vancouver, Washington Realtor extraordinaire. If you're planning a move to Clark County or anywhere around the Portland Metro, I'd love to be your guide. I work with buyers, sellers, and especially relocation clients coming from all across the country. My goal is to help you land in the right home, in the right neighborhood, with total confidence. If you want to get started, you can call, text, or email me anytime, or fill out my buyer questionnaire linked down below, and I'll reach out personally. Today, we're talking about something I get asked about constantly, especially by people relocating from out of state or watching the market closely right now, and that's buying new construction in Vancouver, Washington. A lot of buyers come into this process thinking new construction is simpler than buying a resale home. Brand new, fewer repairs, modern layouts, and everything feels very straightforward on the surface. But the reality is, the new construction process here in Vancouver and throughout Clark County works a little differently than many people expect, especially if you're coming from places like California, Arizona, Texas, or Hawaii. I've been having so many conversations lately that start with questions like, is new construction easier than buying resale? Or do I really need an agent if I'm working with a builder? Or why does the base price look affordable but the final number feels so much higher? Or even, why does new construction seem to work great for some buyers but not for others? These are all very valid questions because new construction is not a one-size-fits-all solution and the details matter a lot. So in this video, I'm walking you through what buying new construction in Vancouver, Washington typically looks like from start to finish. We'll talk about the different types of new construction you'll see here, how the buying process actually works, what costs tend to surprise buyers the most, how timelines really play out, and why having the right representation from beginning to end can really make a big difference. If you're considering new construction, trying to decide between new and resale, or planning a relocation to Clark County and want clarity instead of confusion, this video is going to help you understand not just how the process works, but whether new construction truly makes sense for your situation, your timeline, and your budget. And if you're planning a move, thinking about buying, or just want to talk through your options with someone who knows this market inside and out, I'd love to help. You can call, text, or email me anytime, or fill out my buyer questionnaire linked down below, and I'll reach out directly. All right, friends, let's get into it. Before we get into timelines, contracts, or costs, we need to get clear on what people actually mean when they say they want new construction in Vancouver, Washington. This is one of the biggest sources of confusion I see, especially with relocation buyers. When most buyers picture new construction, they imagine one very specific scenario, a model home in a large subdivision with a simple, straightforward process. And that absolutely exists here, but in Vancouver and throughout Clark County, new construction is not a single thing. There are several different types, and the type you choose changes your experience in a big way. One common option is a spec home. This is a home the builder decided to build without a buyer under contract. The floor plan, lot, and most finishes are already selected. Sometimes the home is finished, and sometimes it's partway through construction. Spec homes are popular with buyers who want new construction but don't want to wait months to move in. The trade-off is that you usually have limited choice because the builder has already made most of the decisions. Another option is to-be-built new construction. This is what most people think of when they imagine buying a home. You choose a floor plan, select a lot, and the home is built after you go under contract. This option gives you more control, but it also comes with a longer timeline and more moving parts. Design selections, upgrades, and construction schedules all play a role, and this is where budgets and expectations really need to be managed carefully. There is also custom new construction, which is a completely different experience. Custom builds typically involve owning or purchasing land and hiring a builder to design and build a home from the ground up. This option offers the most flexibility, but it also requires more time, more involvement, and often different financing. It's not what most buyers are actually looking for when they casually say they want new construction, but it does come up from time to time. One category that is especially common in Vancouver is infill new construction. These are brand new homes built in established neighborhoods rather than large subdivisions. You might see a new home on a street where most of the surrounding homes were built decades ago. Infill homes can be appealing because you get modern systems and finishes while still being in a more central or established area. At the same time, they can come with different lot sizes, fewer shared amenities, and often no HOA. It's also important to understand understand that new construction can feel very different depending on where you are in Clark County. A new construction neighborhood in Ridgefield can feel very different from one in East Vancouver or Camas. Even within Vancouver itself, some communities are heavily HOA driven with shared amenities, while others are more simple and practical. Location and lifestyle matter just as much as the home itself. The big takeaway here is this: when you say you want new construction, the real question is what type of new construction fits your timeline, your budget, and the kind of experience you want to have. Once that's clear, everything else becomes much easier to navigate. Once buyers decide they want to explore new construction, the process usually begins with visiting a model home or a new construction community. This step feels informal, but it's one of the most important parts of the entire transaction. When you walk into a model home, the person greeting you is a representative of the builder. Their job is to answer questions, showcase the product, and move buyers towards a sale. They're not there to represent the buyer's best interests. In Vancouver and throughout Clark County, many builders have very specific rules about buyer registration. If a buyer plans to have their own agent, that agent typically needs to be involved from the very first visit. If registration doesn't happen properly, or if a buyer visits alone first, they may lose the ability to have representation for that community. This often catches buyers off guard because it's very different from the resale process, where representation can usually be added later without issue. After a buyer chooses a specific home or lot, the next step is signing a builder contract. Builder contracts are not standardized like resale contracts. They're written by the builder and are designed to protect the builder's timeline, pricing, and flexibility. Closing dates are often listed as estimates rather than firm deadlines. Contingencies may be more limited, and some decisions, like substitutions or changes during construction, are typically controlled by the builder. If the home is a spec home or close to completion, the timeline can feel more straightforward. Buyers may be able to see the actual home, review finishes, and move towards closing within a relatively predictable window. If the home is to be built, the process becomes more involved. Buyers usually select a floor plan, choose a lot, and then move into a design and selection phase. The design phase is where many buyers feel both excited and overwhelmed. This is when decisions are made about flooring, countertops, cabinets, lighting, and sometimes structural features. Builders often present a base package with upgrades available at additional costs. It's very common for buyers to underestimate how much these choices can impact the final price, especially if they are comparing the home to a model home filled with upgrades. Once construction begins, buyers typically move into a waiting period with scheduled updates and occasional walkthroughs, depending on the builder. Timelines can shift due to weather, labor availability, permitting, or material delays. This is normal with new construction, but it can feel stressful if buyers are trying to coordinate a move, sell another home, or lock in financing without flexibility. Even though the home is brand new, inspections still matter. City inspections confirm that the home meet minimum building codes, but a private inspection focuses on workmanship, installation, and details that can impact the home long term. Many issues are much easier to address before closing, which is why inspections are still a key part of the process. As the home nears completion, buyers complete a final walkthrough to identify any remaining items that need attention. After that, the transaction moves towards closing, which can still involve small timeline adjustments. Planning for some flexibility helps buyers navigate this phase with far less stress. Overall, the new construction buying process in Vancouver is very doable when buyers understand the steps and have realistic expectations. Most challenges arise not because the process is complicated, but because buyers assume it works the same way as buying a resale home. Knowing how it actually works ahead of time allows buyers to move through the process with much more confidence and clarity. One of the biggest reasons buyers feel caught off guard by new construction isn't the process itself, but the final cost. On the surface, new construction can look very straightforward. There's a base price listed, and compared to resale, it feels very clean and simple. But in reality, the base price is only part of the overall picture. One of the most common additional costs is the lot premium. Not every lot in a new construction community is priced the same. Larger lots, corner lots, lots with views, or lots that back to green space often come with an added cost. Buyers don't always realize this until they've already fallen in love with a specific lot, and that can change the numbers quickly. Design center upgrades are another area where expectations and budgets can shift. Model homes are designed to highlight what is possible, not what's standard. Flooring, countertops, cabinetry, lighting, and plumbing fixtures are often upgraded features. Even small selections can add up, especially for buyers who are trying to recreate the look and feel of a model home they toured. Another cost that that surprises many buyers with new construction is the initial deposit. Unlike a resale home where earnest money is often refundable during contingency periods, builder deposits are frequently non-refundable or only partially refundable once you go under contract. This deposit is typically due very early on in the process, sometimes within just a few days of signing the builder contract, and it can be a significant amount. The purpose of the deposit is to show commitment and to protect the builder once they begin ordering materials or reserving a build slot. This doesn't mean buyers should be afraid of it, but it does mean they need to understand exactly when that deposit becomes non-refundable and under what circumstances it could be at risk. That structure is very different from how most resale transactions work, and it's something buyers should be fully comfortable with before moving forward. HOA dues and community features are another important consideration. Many new construction neighborhoods in Vancouver and Clark County have HOAs, but the structure and cost can vary widely. Some HOAs are minimal, while others support shared amenities like parks, private streets, or community spaces. Because these communities are new, HOA budgets and rules can evolve over time. Another area buyers often underestimate is what's included at the end of the build. Landscaping, fencing, window coverings, and sometimes even appliances aren't always included, depending on the builder. Buyers coming from resale homes often assume these items are standard, and that assumption can lead to unexpected expenses right before or shortly after closing. Financing can also feel very different with new construction. Extended timelines may require longer rate locks, and builder incentives often come with conditions, such as using a preferred lender or title company. Those incentives can be helpful, but it's important to understand how they affect the overall cost and flexibility of the transaction. None of this means new construction is a bad option. For many buyers, it's an excellent fit. The key is understanding that the sticker price isn't the final price, and that planning ahead makes the entire experience far more predictable and far less stressful. Buyers who go into new construction with clear expectations, a realistic budget buffer, and good guidance tend to feel more confident by the time they get the keys. This is one of the most common questions I hear when buyers start exploring new construction, and it's a fair one. On the surface, it can feel like having an agent is unnecessary because there's already a builder representative involved and the process seems streamlined. The key thing to understand is who the builder's representative actually works for. The builder representative's job is to represent the builder. They're there to explain the product, outline the builder's process, and move the transaction forward in a way that benefits the builder. They're not there to advise buyers on whether the terms are favorable, whether the pricing makes sense, or whether a particular option truly fits the buyer's needs. Having your own agent means you have someone whose sole responsibility is to look out for your interests. With new construction, that includes helping you understand the builder contract, explaining how deposits work, and making sure you're comfortable with the level of risk you're taking on at each stage of the process. Representation also matters when it comes to negotiation. While builders are often less flexible on price than resale sellers, there can still be room to negotiate on things like incentives, upgrades, timelines, or closing costs. Knowing when and how to have those conversations requires an understanding of the local market and the builder's typical practices. Another important role your agent plays is during inspections. Even though the home is brand new, inspections are still valuable. A private inspection focuses on quality and workmanship, not just whether the home meets minimum building standards. Having an agent involved helps ensure inspection findings are properly addressed before closing, rather than being brushed aside or minimized. Your agent also acts as a buffer and advocate if issues come up during construction. Delays, material substitutions, and communication gaps are not uncommon with new construction. Having someone who can step in, ask the right questions, and keep things moving can make the process far less stressful. One of the biggest misconceptions about using an agent for new construction is cost. In most cases, buyer representation is already built into the builder's pricing. That means having your own agent typically doesn't increase the price you pay, but it does add an extra layer of protection and guidance. The most important thing is timing. If you want representation, it usually needs to be established from the very beginning, often before or during your first visit to a builder. Waiting too long can limit your options. At the end of the day, buying new construction is still a major financial decision. Having someone on your side who understands the local market, the contracts, and the process can make a meaningful difference in how confident and supported you feel throughout the experience. One of the biggest adjustments buyers have to make with new construction is how they think about timing. With resale homes, timelines tend to be more predictable once you're under contract. With new construction, timelines are more flexible, and planning for that flexibility upfront makes a huge difference in how smooth the experience feels. Timelines vary depending on what you're buying. A move-in ready spec home can often close relatively quickly. A home that's already under construction may still have a shifting timeline depending on what stages are left. A to-be-built home typically has the longest timeline because the process starts earlier, often before permits are finalized or construction begins. In builder contracts, closing dates are usually written as estimates rather than guarantees. This is very common with new construction, and it allows the builder room to adjust as the project progresses. The best way to approach this is to think in terms of a window instead of a single exact date. Delays happen for very normal reasons. In Clark County, permitting timelines can shift, inspections can get backed up, weather can slow certain phases of construction, and labor or material availability can change. Even well-run builds can experience delays, and they're not automatically a sign that something is wrong. Another factor that impacts timelines is the decision-making process. In a to-be-built home, buyers have deadlines for design selections and upgrades. Late decisions or changes after certain stages can affect the schedule. Builders may also need to make substitutions if materials become unavailable, which can shift timing slightly. From a planning standpoint, flexibility matters most when it comes to moving logistics and financing. If you're relocating, it's important to avoid locking yourself into one exact move date without a backup plan. Short-term housing, flexible movers, or overlap between homes can help reduce stress if the closing date shifts. Financing also needs to be planned carefully. Rate locks have time limits, and longer locks may cost more. If a build runs longer than expected, buyers may need to extend or adjust their rate lock. This is very manageable when planned for early, but stressful when it's not. As the home nears completion, buyers typically do a final walkthrough to identify any remaining items that need attention. These are usually minor, but they still take time to address. The final phase of construction often feels slower because it involves inspections, approvals, and detail work. The most helpful mindset with new construction is to expect movement rather than perfection on the first date given. When buyers plan for a range instead of a single day, the process tends to feel far more manageable. Delays aren't red flags. They're a part of building a home. With realistic expectations and good planning, new construction timelines can feel very manageable and even less stressful than resale in many cases. Now comes the part where we take a step back and get honest, because new construction isn't automatically the right choice for everyone, and that's completely okay. New construction tends to be a great fit if you like the idea of something brand new and you're comfortable with a little bit of waiting. If you enjoy modern layouts, energy efficiency, and knowing that you're the first person to live in the home, new construction can feel really exciting. It can also be a good option if you prefer fewer immediate repairs and you like having warranties in place during the early years of ownership. New construction also works well for buyers who enjoy having some say in the final product. Even if you're not designing every detail, choosing finishes or upgrades can be a fun part of the process, especially if you like planning and decision making. On the other hand, new construction may not be the best fit if you need to move on a very tight timeline. If your job start date, school schedule, or lease expiration is firm, the flexibility required with new construction can feel stressful. Resale homes can often provide more certainty when it comes to closing dates. It may also not be the right fit if you want a very established neighborhood right away. Mature trees, unique architecture, and a lived-in feel are things many buyers love, and those are often easier to find in resale areas. Some buyers also prefer knowing exactly how a neighborhood functions before moving in, especially when it comes to traffic patterns, parking, or community rules. Budget comfort matters too. If you like knowing your full cost upfront with fewer variables, resale can sometimes feel more predictable. With new construction, there can be more decisions along the way, and even when you plan carefully, you need to be comfortable with some flexibility in the final numbers. And then, there are the buyers who fall somewhere in the middle. They like the idea of new construction, but they're also open to resale if it checks the right boxes. These are often the buyers who benefit most from seeing both options side by side before making a decision. The good news is that there's no wrong choice here. New construction isn't better than resale, and resale isn't better than new construction. They're just different experiences. The right answer depends on your timeline, your lifestyle, and how involved you want to be in the process. When buyers choose the option that truly fits them, The experience tends to feel exciting instead of overwhelming, and that's always the goal. So when we zoom out and look at new construction in Vancouver, Washington, the biggest takeaway is this. It's a process that rewards preparation, not assumptions. New construction can be an incredible option, but it works best when you understand how it actually functions here in Clark County, from contracts and deposits to timelines and decision making. Buyers who do well with new construction are the ones who go in informed and realistic. They understand the difference between base price and final price. They know timelines can shift. They plan for flexibility. And most importantly, they choose the type of new construction that fits their lifestyle, their budget, and their comfort level, rather than just what looks good in a model home. What I want you to take away from this video is that new construction isn't automatically easier or harder than resale. It's simply just a different experience. The right choice is not about chasing what feels safest or newest, but about understanding your options and aligning them with your personal goals, your timeline, and how involved you want to be in the process. If you're thinking about buying new construction, comparing it to resale, or planning a move to Vancouver or anywhere in Clark County and want help sorting through what actually makes sense for you, I would love to be a resource. You can call, text, or email me anytime, or fill out my buyer questionnaire linked below, and I'll reach out personally. Even if you're still early in the planning stages, those conversations can be incredibly helpful. And before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Are you leaning towards new construction, resale, or are you still trying to weigh both options? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, friends. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!